Some candies from around the world quickly turned from sweet to sour, literally and figuratively, leaving many to feel tricked rather than treated. From cigarette-shaped candy to explosive gum, here are 9 of the most dangerous candies in the world. Number 9. Black licorice. Imagine Halloween going something like this. You start enjoying the holiday season with a scary movie and a bag of innocent-looking black licorice candy. You do this for a couple weeks in October, and then you die. Wait, what? That's exactly what happened to a 54-year-old construction worker from Massachusetts. He had been consuming this candy excessively for several weeks, most likely unaware of its potential deadly side effects. We are well aware of this particular candy's allure, but it's probably wise to expand our knowledge of its lesser-known hidden toxicity when taken in excessive quantities. Yes, you can overdose on it, as FDA states. Black licorice contains glycyrrhizin, a compound derived from the root of licorice that has a sweetening effect. Glycyrrhizin is known to cause potassium levels to fall, which can lead to abnormal heart rhythms, congestive heart failure, and high blood pressure and a lack of energy. FDA is clear on this. If you are over 40, 2 ounces of black licorice a day for about 2 weeks can land you in a hospital bed with serious heart problems. You shouldn't feel discouraged from enjoying your favorite black licorice candy, but you should keep the dose in mind. Number 8. Candy cigarettes. Tobacco kills about half of all smokers. It is a cause of 1 death globally every 5 seconds. Every cigarette reduces a smoker's life for about 5 to 11 minutes. Enter candy cigarettes. Conceived back in the 1880s, they flooded mass markets around the 1920s. At the time when smoking started being perceived as an act of rebelliousness, cigarettes became symbols of freedom, defiance, and the very definition of cool, especially in the all-American lifestyle of the time. Its main ingredients, consisting mainly of chalky sugar, bubblegum, or chocolate, weren't as much of an issue as the fact that they were molding smoking behavior in youngsters, as well as desensitizing them to an unhealthy habit. As it later turned out, these criticisms were very much in line with the growing body of research that seemed to indicate a real correlation between candy cigarettes consumption and the proneness to smoking later in life. Big tobacco companies saw enormous potential to expand their customer base, as they often do, through clever marketing tactics that included teaming up with candy cigarette manufacturers to create ever more realistic replicas of cigarette packaging for the seemingly innocent candy. Unfortunately for them, but fortunately for everyone else, concerns around the controversial kitty cigarettes started rising during the 1950s and began resulting in banning them entirely from the candy market aimed at children during the subsequent decades. These days, they are much rarer, but hey, the strange ways of the internet can get you almost anything. Just please, leave kids to learn by themselves that smoking isn't cool in the 2020s. Hey, real quick, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Give this video a like and hit that subscribe button for more videos like these. Number 7. Haribo sugar-free gummy bears. Many people have a sweet tooth, especially for gummy bears. One would think that a sugar-free version of this delightful candy would be a dream come true for our inner kids and food inspectors alike, but less than favorable reviews from both suggested otherwise, resulting in discontinuation of its production. Many fans of the Haribo gummy bears were suffering some really unpleasant side effects, including colon damage and discomfort after enjoying just a portion of gummies they would normally indulge in, which led to the aforementioned scathing reviews of this now infamous candy. The main culprit behind this was a sugar substitute, Licorice, a hydrogenated syrup that had previously been generally clinically approved as safe. Licorice, however, consists predominantly of maltodol, a sugar alcohol that is known for its inability to be fully digested and the fact that it ferments in the stomach. Gut reactions to maltodol are very literal, since they include loose stool, increased flatulence, and diarrhea. Gastrointestinal reactions not very pleasant to hear about, let alone experience, from just about 15 gummy bears, which is not difficult to eat in one sitting. Let's not spoil our dearest childhood memories with these kinds of stunts anymore. Haribo, is that okay with you? Number 6. Hippie sippy. If we were to recount the glorious days of the 1960s revolutionary spirit, celebration of freedom and countercultural enthusiasm would be remiss of us if we forgot to mention the rampant drug use. At the height of heroin popularity arose a candy, no less, that was meant to mimic the drug through its package that included a toy syringe and multicolored candy reminiscent of the high highs and the low lows heroin induces in its users. As you might have guessed, it raised an eyebrow or two, and the hippie sippy says, "I'll try anything" phrase, imprinted on the package, certainly contributed to the much-desired shock value that the clever marketers were aiming for. The candy consisted of tiny chocolate balls that were sucked out through a container, analogous to heroin being consumed through a hypodermic needle. The product was manufactured in Japan and imported in the U.S. through a company named R.L. Albert Company in New York, and received immediate backlash from concerned citizens about its role in prompting loose moral concepts in impressionable children. Although it was never meant to be a staple in the candy industry, it has certainly maintained its notoriety to this day. Number 5. Explosive gum. Vladimir was a quiet, shy 25-year-old man who was interested in math, chemistry, and physics, and he mostly kept to himself. Until one day, he tragically blew his jaw off and bled to death after bursting a chewing gum bubble that appeared to have been previously dipped in citric acid and an unidentifiable explosive back in 2009. According to reports, Vladimir had been enjoying chewing on gum while he was studying and researching his favorite subjects. The citric acid he had dipped the gum in probably served the purpose of lending the gum a sour taste, which many people, ironically, enjoy in their sweets. It is believed that the young man had been tinkering with various chemicals before the incident, which resulted in the creation of a chemical that, combined with his habit of bursting gum bubbles, led to his untimely demise. Some speculations indicated that Vladimir had confused the deadly explosive with citric acid he was planning to use to spice up his favorite candy. Vladimir was found on the floor with his face bleeding and his jaw torn to pieces. Unfortunately, emergency services couldn't do anything to save the young man. This tragedy is a reminder to all of you edgy kids out there, trying to be cool can lead to deadly outcomes. Number 4. Lollipipe. Lollipipes, also known as candy crack pipes, are brightly colored candies that caused quite an uproar following its introduction to the candy market. This provocative edible item was marketed as a tobacco pipe, but many saw striking similarities to marijuana pipes. This caused intense efforts by officials and many non-marijuana aficionados to tirelessly argue against such a product even existing, let alone being readily available to sell to children and teens. The main concern was that kids and adolescents would associate a delicious candy with drug abuse and develop positive attitudes towards psychoactive substances, thus increasing the probability of them abusing drugs later in life. For example, an Oakland County executive, L. Brooks Patterson, stated that lollipipes are a gateway to child and teen drug abuse, further clarifying his position by saying that they send a horrible message that drugs are like candy, which would have a devastating effect on an already rapidly multiplying and complex problem of rampant drug use throughout the U.S. Lollipipes were eventually removed from the shelves, but what they did achieve was to tackle a problem that had been and is still plaguing many communities across the country that have already experienced detrimental effects of drug abuse to their communities. Number 3. Lucas candy. This Mexican product was widely and heavily criticized to the point that it was even a miracle that it saw the light of day in the U.S. before it was banned. Those criticisms were aimed as much for its ingredients as for the way many people decided to consume it. Namely, many had started to snort it, which is a dangerous practice that creates nasal line damage. The ingredients Lucas contained hardly helped: sugar, salt, citric acid, chili powder, silicone dioxide, maltodextrin, and coloring. Out of these ingredients, the only one thought to have any real nutritional and health benefits is chili powder, which would be great were it not for the fact that all the other ingredients negated those potential benefits, aside from providing 2% of daily value in one package through vitamin A. What was especially concerning were high levels of sodium, which is known to cause a variety of health issues, including heart attacks and strokes. Sugar, of course, is mainly responsible for obesity, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease, with added sugars being linked to various types of cancers. Citric acid leads to cough, sore throat, and shortness of breath, and artificial colors are associated with stomach pain, vomiting, diarrhea, and ADHD in children. The biggest concern with Lucas candy, however, was a very possible presence of lead in it, which could cause brain damage, kidney damage, and stunted growth. Whoa. Number 2, toxic waste nuclear sludge Chewbar. I don't think any of us are really surprised that a candy named toxic waste nuclear sludge Chewbar would eventually find its way to store shelves. Termed nuclear candy, this Pakistani imported delight was distributed in cities across the U.S. from 2007 to 2011, when it was determined that it was in fact, well, toxic. Officials from California Department of Public Health found that the nuclear candy contained 0.24 parts per million of lead in the cherry-flavored variant of the candy, which is 2.4 times more than the legally acceptable amount of 0.1 parts per million. The blue raspberry and sour apple flavored bars were not tested, but were still pulled from the shelves out of precaution, given that this much toxicity would endanger anyone who would have dared to consume such a hilariously and absurdly named sweet, and it would be especially harmful to children and pregnant women. Consumers who had eaten large quantities of this literal toxic waste were strongly advised to visit a physician and consult them about possible adverse effects of ingesting these bars. Toxic waste nuclear sludge Chewbar was even promoted as a hazardously sour candy that was supposed to appeal to those who thought they were brave enough to challenge their limits when it came to eating sour candy. As we know all too well, incredibly dangerous and potentially fatal practices spread like wildfire through the internet sphere. I guess we can at least thank the manufacturers of this disaster of a candy for being upfront about its qualities by naming it the way they did. Number 1, candy with fentanyl and ecstasy. Us adults are equally enthusiastic when it comes to candy. When we see or taste some, we are almost taken back to childhood, moved by memories of happy times and complete abandon, without a single worry in the world. So, what would be the ultimate grown-up candy? Well, some adults, and possibly involved minors, thought that they could provide us with a candy-shaped and packaged fentanyl and ecstasy, which definitely tops this list as the most dangerous candy in the world. 2020 has been a crazy year, so it's only natural that we tackle this incident regarding drug-filled candy. Shaped in the famous Hello Kitty form, it started to flood the streets of Millersville, Tennessee, after a resident found what seemed to be a box of Hershey's Kisses on the front. The Millersville police soon uncovered an organized distribution of this praline-shaped candy filled with fentanyl and ecstasy. Fentanyl is an opioid drug that can exhibit effects up to 100 times stronger and more intense than morphine. Ecstasy, often referred to as MDMA, has effects similar to many other hallucinogenic and stimulant drugs. These potentially extremely harmful psychoactive substances, shaped, arranged, and packaged as innocent sweets, were traced back to several names, including a 22-year-old woman named Jessica Sorrenti Story, who was declared a person of interest in this shocking case of ruthless drug trafficking in disguise. These drugs, approximately worth $400, could have easily found their way to children's hands, which would have been a disaster unlike any other. Long gone are the days when Hippie sippy was the biggest national concern about the ever-growing drug problem in the U.S. Thanks for watching. What do you think of these dangerous candies? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!